We often need to disagree with people, but there are different ways to do it. Sometimes you want to be very direct, and you don't care if it sounds rude. Sometimes you want to be very gentle, and you want to make sure you haven't offended anyone. Because if they get offended, then you feel upset. Well, how do you do one or the other? That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to look at phrases for disagreeing with someone, first directly and rudely, and then more politely in a more indirect way. All right? So let's hop over to the board, talk about expressing disagreement. Now, you'll notice a trend. When we speak directly, and I don't mean it is rude, it can come across or seem rude, we often use simpler language and we use simpler sentences. And when we want to be more polite or less direct, we add specific words. You'll see words like quite and just, and then things before commas like in my view. That sounds a little bit formal, but something like that feels much more polite and respectful than just saying what your opinion is, right? Now with quite and just, think about this. If someone asks your opinion about something and you just say, I don't like it, how does that sound? Well, it's very direct. Maybe you want to be. But if you say, it's not quite my style, it's not quite my thing, and you add quite there, then what you've done is made it a lot softer. And it sounds more sort of like I'm standing farther away and giving my view with some flowers attached to it, right? The best way to really understand how we do this is to look at some examples. So let's start with some example sentences that focus on indirect, and then we'll look at some more direct ones, okay? I don't quite see it that way. So if we use quite as opposed to I don't see it that way, we're softening it. We're softening it by adding quite. I don't see it that way. Could be a little direct, maybe a little bit rude, possibly, right? I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. I don't quite see it that way. We could also put well there to have a sort of pause, and that might soften it a bit too. Well, I don't see it that way. Well, I don't quite see it that way. Then at the end we might say, but that's just my opinion. It's only my opinion. Definitely softens it. We may not see eye to eye on that one. Instead of we don't see eye to eye. Eye to eye is a common expression. It means you agree or you feel the same way as someone else. We don't see eye to eye on this. That might sound direct and rude. We don't see eye to eye on this, and then you walk away. I don't see eye to eye with you on this one. And then you go. Feels a little bit straight. We may not. Much more gentle. Much less direct, right? And if you wanted to make it even softer, put quite there. Because quite softens everything. We may not quite see eye to eye. That's so indirect that I would advise not using it because it sounds like you're afraid to even give your opinion. I can see how you may think that, but so there you're using the sandwich method where you're kind of giving somebody something, you're giving them some credit. You're saying, well, yes, that's very nice, or what you just said is nice and interesting, and I see your point of view, your perspective. That could be a way of showing respect to someone. That's great. Instead of just saying your opinion, well, I think you're crazy because, or I think, and just say your opinion. It's fine, right? I think is a normal way to start an opinion. But to use this first, I can see how you may think that. But I think is a way to kind of put a bun on top of the meat that you want to say, the sandwich method. And then maybe at the end you put another bun underneath. I'm more of the opinion that, now this sounds extremely formal. Oops, that's a R. Formal. This sounds very formal, so only use this one if you are in a formal situation. You want to be cautious of other people's feelings. You don't want them to think you're being too direct. And maybe this feels a bit academic as well. Academic settings. I'm more of the opinion that instead of just saying I think. Now, I don't want to suggest that I think is rude. It's not. It's neutral. It's just a way to say your opinion. This is just a way to give it a bit more formality. After we disagree, if we can't resolve the disagreement, we have the disagreement, we can't figure it out, we're just going to separate now. Or on this issue, we can't really solve it, so I don't know what to say. To each their own. It's like saying I'm giving you credit for having your opinion, and that's fine. I don't agree with it. This is quite respectful. And agree to disagree is pretty neutral, but it's a nice way to say, I disagree with you, but I understand that you have a different view on it, and that's fine. And, you have your opinion. Agree to disagree. Very common expression, usually at the end of a conversation. After we've had the conversation and we've realized we don't have the same point of view, we might say something like this, okay? Now what I'd like to do is go in the complete opposite direction and talk about how we can directly say what we think, even going as far as to express ourselves rudely on purpose, okay? You're dead wrong. This is a very strong one. You're dead wrong. That's like a punch in the face before you say, I think. Right? Again, I think is not rude, it's not direct, it's not indirect, it's just clearly stating your opinion. It's neutral. But if you say you're dead wrong, I think, I'm slapping you across the face, pay attention, splashing you in the face with a cup of hot coffee, and then saying, I think. That's what it's doing. You couldn't be more wrong. This is another version of this, which I think is a little less rude sounding and is more of a passionate disagreement. It's not that I want to be rude to you, but it's that I think your opinion is crazy and I'm going to educate you and teach you the right way. I'm going to share my view now, and I think you're thinking in the wrong way. I think you're thinking in the wrong way. Don't say that. It could be considered rude. It really depends on how you say it. Listen, you couldn't be more wrong on this one if you wanted to add it specifically. Not you in general, not all your opinions on this one. On this one. Maybe you're right on other issues, but on this one, you couldn't be more wrong. So it depends on how you express that. This one is pretty rude, though. This one you might use for a family member or a close friend, right? You just think that their opinion is so stupid, or the way that they're saying it, you can't believe that you're hearing it. And you say, you should hear yourself. Now, you might say, I can't believe what I'm hearing, but that's more for, I can't believe what I'm hearing might often be used for shock or surprise. This is not for shock or surprise. This is like saying, if you had your head screwed on straight, you would be able to hear how stupid what you're saying is. I can hear it, so I can make this comment. You should hear yourself. Are you insane? Or, that's insane. That's crazy. Again, it's like a slap in the face. You're a lunatic. You're a psycho. You're insane. That's insane. Are you crazy? Very similar thing. Now, are you crazy can be used in a lot of ways, which are not necessarily rude, but just a way to express surprise. You're doing something risky, right? You're getting on a motorcycle that is you're driving on a road by a cliff. Are you crazy? What are you doing? They're expressing concern, but sometimes somebody says an opinion I strongly disagree with, I might say, are you crazy? And in that case, it feels more like that's insane and you should hear yourself. It could come across as rude. But again, we have relationships with people, friends and family we're close to, and we just speak like this. And it's not an insult. It's just a way to communicate with people we're close with. Stop talking. Very rude. If it's with somebody you don't know, yeah, that's very rude. But again, if you're talking to a friend or a family member, we have these ways of speaking that are less formal. We don't say, may I please open the window if that's okay with you. When we're talking to family, we just say, I'm going to open the window. Because it's tiring to speak any other way, right? So stop talking. Depends on the situation, but could be considered rude. So those are some very common expressions for talking about our opinions when we disagree with someone else. Again, you have to be cautious of the situation. You have to understand the situation you're in, whether you want to sound more direct, whether that's going to be rude or not, or less direct, whether that's going to be formal and academic or not. But generally speaking, if you don't know what to say, just say, I think, because that's pretty neutral. It's not one or the other.